how much does assisted living cost, and why is it so hard to find the answer to that question sometimes? The point of this video is to give you some information so that you can make the best decision for you as you're looking for a place for your loved one. So there are a few main types of pricing models that assisted living centers have for each of their residents. And they are trying to cover costs, right? And so it's good to understand some of the costs of assisted living to understand why they price things the way that they do. And ultimately, that's why the answer is a little bit hard to find, is because it varies so much person to person. On average, it looks like assisted living across the country costs somewhere around $4,300 a month. In Wichita, Kansas, where our facility is located, it's a little bit higher than the national average at about $5,200 per month. But like I said, that can vary widely depending on the needs of the resident. So an assisted living has a building and typically has a mortgage on the building, and that is a fixed cost. It doesn't change depending on how many residents are in the facility. And then there are other costs that are variable that depend on how many residents there are. Those costs would be things like food or CNAs and CMAs. By far the biggest expense for assisted livings is, other than the building, is payroll expenses. And then laundry services, cleaning chemicals, etc. So one of the pricing models that used to be more popular a few years back was an a la carte model. And the way that this worked is that there was a base rate, but that base rate only covered the rent. Everything else above that was priced a la carte. So every medication that they needed, every meal that they were fed, every time their room was cleaned or laundry was done, for example, there was a surcharge. And the advantage of that model is that generally you pay for what you get. The downside of that model is it's pretty hard to keep track of things, especially as or if your family member starts to get some memory problems. It's hard to know whether a service was rendered or not. And so that can be a difficulty with the a la carte pricing model. Another challenge with it is that the price varies per month. And so people who are on a fixed income can find it challenging to be able to budget depending on that model. Another model that we see is an all-in-one model, and it's kind of the opposite of the a la carte. There's a base price, and well, I'm sorry, not a base price. There's an all-inclusive price that covers everything. And usually, though, there are still tiers of that all-inclusive price depending on how much care a resident needs, but it includes everything about the facility, all of the amenities. The downside of this is that residents, if it's not tiered based on resident care and it's all just kind of one flat fee, then residents who need more care end up ending up costing the facility more. So the facility has to set prices sufficiently high that the people who use less services and less care actually end up subsidizing those who need a little bit more help. It is nice, however, for a fixed income to know exactly how much that you're paying every month. Another strategy is a combination of the two, and this is what we use at the Mapleton. And the way that this strategy works is that there is a kind of all-inclusive price depending on the care level that the resident needs. And it includes most of the basic amenities, things that every resident generally is looking for or interested in. It can be things like housekeeping, meal service, internet, things like that. And then items that are less common are billed on a per occurrence basis. These are things like maybe an insulin injection, or if they need tray service or room service, they need their meals brought to their room every day. You can see how that varies depending on different residents' needs. And so those are billed per occurrence. The last model that I've seen is one that I call kind of the deposit model. And the way that works is it generally happens with institutions that are really large. So they'll have like a 55 plus community, independent living community, and then an assisted living community, and then you'd have a nursing home and skilled nursing types of services. And people would move into the 55 plus community and they'd put down a large deposit, sometimes in excess of $100,000. And while they live in that independent community, they cover all their expenses. And then when it comes time for them to move into assisted living, That $100,000 guarantees them a room, and it also guarantees them care generally for the life, for their life. So as they progress and move into maybe a nursing home, that care goes with them and the deposit is drawn down. Now, obviously, the advantage of this type of model is that a resident has a guaranteed place to stay. If you're interested in that model, it's important to understand what elements can cause a resident to be asked to leave a facility. I think it's probably rare, but events of that may be things like maybe they're becoming really combative. Sometimes with memory care, you see that a little bit. So it's important to understand what elements there are and then what happens in that case. For some facilities, that deposit is forfeit, meaning when you pay that $100,000, that's it. You never see it, no matter if that person lives in the assisted living, maybe only for a year or so. That is what it is. Sometimes as well, they will refund the deposit back to the estate. And it's important for you to understand how they determine how much they're refunding. That again can be kind of hard to track sometimes, to know why as much was refunded as there was, but that is kind of the deposit model. In all of these situations, there's a couple other fees to understand. The first is a community fee. This can range anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. It can even be more than that. But the community fee is generally intended to cover the costs of moving a new resident in. This would be things like replacing carpet, painting walls, doing deep cleaning in the rooms, etc. Generally, that's a one-time fee. Another fee that you would want to be aware of is a cost of living increase. Most facilities just build in a 1 to 4% increase every year to help cover some of the cost of inflation as things get a little bit more expensive. So hopefully this information has been helpful. Of course, you'll want to make sure that you're aware of what pricing model your facility follows so you can budget accordingly. And also, keep in mind that there's a lot of different pricing models and there's a lot of different preferences, which is really nice because generally people can find something that works for them and their loved one. So best of luck on your search. If we can be of any help, let us know. Email us at team@themapleton.com.